You asked the story about the little girl. She was 7. Her name's Susan. I'm in the front yard. I'm naked. It's January in St. Louis, and there's snow on the ground. I have no clothes on because they've been burnt off, but I also have no skin. That's the situation in the front yard, and this little 7-year-old hears me and that I want to die. I'm telling my older sister that I want out. I want her to go back into the house and get a knife. And what this 7-year-old does is she goes back into the house, but not for a knife. She goes in for a cup of water. She comes racing back outside. She throws the cup of water right into my face. She then wheels around and goes back into a burning house a second time, fills up a second cup, comes back, throws it in my face, and then she runs right back in. You know, the Gospel of John, there's a quote, "No greater love is there than this, to be willing to lay down one's life for one's friends." And that is great love, and she's willing to do it. So she's able to safely go into a burning house 3 times. It's one more little miracle. Come outside safely. 3 cups of water throwing right into my face. I'm burned, 3rd degree from my neck to my toes. But as you look at my goofy face, my whole body's scarred and busted, but not my face. And the doctors credit her with that.
Hi, I'm Kristen Brunius, and this is the Overcomers Podcast. I'm so excited for you to hear the stories of incredible people overcoming trials and turning them into triumphs. From everyday moms and dads to entrepreneurs to community leaders and beyond, you'll see how everyone has a story of overcoming, and those stories are what connect us all. Let's hop right in. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overcomers Podcast. We're so glad you are here today. I have a super amazing guest, and I think I say that every week, but equally amazing. I have John O'Leary. I had the privilege to hear him speak, I'd say, what was it, 2 weeks ago about?
Yeah, a little bit more now.
Yeah, and we had an opportunity in the middle of the event to text in to be added to the email list, and I was like, I wonder if I can text in and say, hey, by the way, I have a podcast. Not expecting anyone to get back to me, but your assistant got back to me, and it is quite a privilege to have you here.
Kristen, thank you. Thank you for reaching out. And we use, and your audience will hear this in a moment, but we have a book. We have 2 books now and a movie, our own podcast, and speaking all over the place. But we do all that work to walk with people. So it's not to yell or promote even, it's to serve. So you listen, I cannot possibly say yes to everybody, but we try to be guided by the Spirit. And sometimes we can visit kids in hospitals, and sometimes we can swing by and say hello to organizations, and sometimes we can say yes to podcasts. And this time I'm just glad that you and I were able to find a time and a date that worked.
Yeah, me too. So glad. And I will tell you that I read your book, and I read lots of books for podcasts. And by the way, here's his book. I felt like when I finished reading it, I had a whole list of people that I was like, I'm going to send it to this person and this person and this person, because I feel like not only your story, but the challenges that you put in there can apply to everyone, from my 12-year-old son all the way up to, the CEO of my company, because they're things that everybody needs to hear. So before we talk about that, though some of the people listening may not be familiar with who you are, what your story is, and what makes you unique, and as the title says, makes you on fire, literally and figuratively. So why don't you tell us a little bit of your story of how you became who you are today?
Well, that's a loaded question, but I'll begin with today. So we're having this podcast. I met you in Northwest Indiana. I live, though, in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm married, have 4 children, a son and a Christian, and a business owner, a brother, a dog walker most evenings, just like a super.
What kind of dog? We got
Golden retriever, of course. I feel like I'm running for office. I like the perfect little postcard for that, with the American flag flying behind us and everything else. So, that's my life. It's so normal in so many regards today, and so blessed. So that's awesome. And it all grows out of the ashes of profound struggle. And you and I were talking offline about how everybody's got a story, and that is true. My story is more physical and more like wild in nature, but it's no different in many regards than every one of your listeners' stories. It's just mine. So in short, when I was 9, I was involved in a gasoline explosion, burned on 100% of my body, 87% of the burns were third degree. And the math around this, just to kind of put it in perspective, in 2026, as you and I are chatting, if this same patient presents in a burn center, the math they do is the child, they take the percentage of the body burned. So you do the math at home, podcast listeners, 100. They add the age, 9, and that's mortality. It's just kind of quick paper napkin math. But this child in 2026 has a 109% likelihood of dying. I don't know the math when I'm a kid, and this is back in 1987, but I know I'm in trouble, and I know I'm in pain physically, and I know I'm struggling emotionally, and because I was the reason for the fire, I didn't mean to cause it, but the reality is I did play with fire and gasoline. I did cause the explosion, and I did burn down my mom and dad's house. In the emergency room that day, I remember thinking, not just about me. My most specific thought was around my father's wrath. It's kind of funny to think about now as a dad myself and with a little bit of years between the explosion and today, but the only thought I had as a kid was, my gosh, dad is going to kill me. This old Army veteran father of mine will rip me up. And I deserved it. I spoke to a group of fathers last night, actually, at an event, fathers and sons. And so I really slowly unpacked the story for the guys. And so I'm in this hospital bed thinking dad's going to kill me. I hear his voice down the hallway, kind of barking out at some poor nurse, "Where's my boy John?" And this nurse leads him back. He pulls back the curtain. My father marches in, points down, and he says, "John, look at me when I'm talking to you." So I did. I was scared already, but now I'm even more scared. And I look up and he goes, "John, I've never been so proud of anyone in my entire life. And my little buddy today, this morning, I'm just glad to be your dad." And then he says, "John, I love you. And there is nothing you can do about it." As a kid, and you know my story, but as a kid, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, nobody told my dad what happened. He doesn't know I burned down his home and that I caused these wounds. And of course, all the dads, I know you have a lot of male listeners and moms too and kids, but for the dads, like I didn't know what a father's love really looked like. But I did that day. And his love did not make 5.5 months in hospitalization easy, or years of surgery, or waking up after one of them without my fingers easy, or really years and years of surgery easy. But his love, and this is important, Kristen, made the journey possible. And you lead in a podcast on overcoming. I don't think you can overcome without love, whatever the thing is. And my dad's love on that day was the first real evidence of love that made the rest of the journey possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. And that, I just had a conversation with my husband last night where I was talking about how important he is. And I think the words I said to him is, there's lots of good moms, but men right now, a male role model, a father,
Yes.
an uncle, or whatever, is so important. And I love that you were speaking to those dads. I love that you speak to young men like my son. And man, that love, that deep, deep love. And it's funny, in your book, you talk about later on when you were a teenager and you crashed his vehicle. And I had a similar experience. I don't know, I think it was like 30 seconds after my 16th birthday. I decided to try to go around a train, which you know where this story is going. It didn't go so well. The train didn't hit me, but I hit a ditch. And I remember a similar sort of love demonstrated, the scene of my dad running through the caution tape. I'm in the ambulance. Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? And I'm thinking the same thing you were thinking after the fire. Oh my gosh, he is going to kill me. But,
To my right and your left, there's so this is my office. I don't know if your audience can watch this or not, but if for the viewers here, we are welcome home. But for those listening, like behind the camera is our podcast wall. So it's like astronauts and presidents and just great people I've had the honor of interviewing. Behind me is the reason why I work. It's my wife and kids, my parents, my siblings, her family. Like That's my wall, man. Those are my guys. But over here, these are like historically important figures. And most of them are real, but one of them, this picture up here, is of the prodigal father. It's a Rembrandt painting. And it's this picture of this slaved child. He's probably mid 20s, bald headed, missing a shoe, bent down, broken. And then above him is this father who's he's run, just like your dad ran to the ambulance. It made me think of this story. In the prodigal son story, the father, which is not common at all in Jewish town, goes sprinting over the hillside, comes over to his son and just wraps his arms around him and says, "Welcome home, welcome home." And in Rembrandt's painting, the right hand is this big, tough, probably like your dad's right hand, a man's hand. And the left hand is this very feminine, dainty, about half the size of the other hand. And Rembrandt's not an idiot. Like, it's not like, whoa, he did a pretty crud job on that drawing. That's not an accident. What he's trying to show to the men in the world is it's not just about bravado boys. It's not just about manning up and getting the trophy and climbing high and showing the world what success looks like. It's about having the audacity to be gentle and meek and kind and cut through the yellow tape by the railroad tracks and run to your daughter and say, "Gosh, I'm so glad you're okay. I want you home. I want you home." And so that's the evidence that you received in the ambulance. It's the evidence I received in the hospital room. It's the evidence that Jesus says we are supposed to give to a marketplace longing for, dads, not just this obnoxious sense of masculinity that the world says we should be, but what real men look like in action. I'm glad you and I both witnessed it for a moment in action as kids.
Yeah, yeah. And we're pretty lucky for it. Like, maybe not lucky, blessed. I'm not sure if lucky quite describes it. So your dad was that pivotal turning point, but there were other people along the way. And when I was reading that, I had this challenge in my mind of, how could I be that a little more? And I love that you open the podcast with, we can't go visit every kid in the hospital. We can't be on every podcast. Because immediately that's what I was thinking. Oh my goodness, I have to buy people cups of coffee everywhere I go. And anybody in my community that's in the hospital, I should go visit them, because these people in your life took the time, which is just incredible. But why don't you tell us a little bit about some of those pivotal people in your life?
Honestly, there's too many. In fact, the two ways to answer this. The first is the book On Fire, the one you held up a moment ago. When they first did the cover art for it, Simon and Schuster Company out in New York, they had a picture of me in a suit wearing a red tie, power tie, baby. Arms crossed, looking out of the camera like, aren't I awesome? And if you read this book, perhaps one day, if you follow my steps just right, you might be awesome too. It's going to require work, but maybe you'll be awesome. I don't know. I am, though. So I wrote him back and I'm like, you guys, read the book. This has nothing to do with me. I'm the recipient of this stuff, not the activator. So when they did the cover again, they used something called foil wrap for the letters On Fire. And the idea was that the reader, when they held the book, would see within the reflection themselves. So that the idea is like, I'm not the guy, man, but you could become the guy for someone else. You could become the gal for someone else. You don't need to buy coffee everywhere you go. But what if you did it once? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have the money, what if you held the door open? Like, what if? Like, the little things done in love aren't small ever. So that was the idea of On Fire. And then they did the movie Soul on Fire. And the first cover they made of Soul on Fire, that's the movie that just came out, it was a picture of the guy who plays me. And I won't even go through what he was doing, but it was like a victory shot. It was like the climax of the movie, and so he's kind of like celebrating his greatness. And then I said, you guys, watch the movie you made, because it's not about the guy playing John. And so when you look at the cover art for the film now, it's a picture of the actor playing John turned around. So now his back is to the camera, his arms are in the air, but it's a silhouette. And if you look a little bit more closely, it's a mosaic of, I think it's 120 images of ordinary, and I use that with finger quotes, ordinary individuals who showed up in his life, the love they gave, the mercy they offered, and the impact they were part of. And so the movie poster about Soul on Fire, again, doesn't celebrate one guy's greatness. It celebrates how God used the community, the neighborhood, the world, and to resurrect this broken situation, to redeem it. So when you ask the question, John, tell us about the hero, like I will, but there's too many. So I'll
Should
tell
I
you two,
highlight my favorite three?
please. I think that's a great way to start.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Not at
So
all.
my favorite was your little sister
Awesome.
running. So do you want to tell the story of her running into the house?
It's so awesome, man. And like, if this, you think about what we celebrate in Hollywood or the world today, like this is just ignored. And in our little story, there's evidence of like, oh my gosh, this sibling love is just one little part of this beautiful story of outrageous love. So in the front yard the day I was burned, we kind of just ran through the story a little bit, but I came through the house on fire. The flames in the movie, I don't know if you saw the movie yet or not, but in the movie, they knew kids would be watching it, like your son, so they did not want to make it overly graphic. So in the movie, it's like little flames leaping off of John's shirt, and it's horrible. In real life, it wasn't little flames. It was 3 feet of flame just spewing from the gasoline on John's body. It was a train wreck. It was a mess. And my brother Jim first responded to it, and he picks up a rug, comes over to me, beats on the flames, burns himself in the process, but saves my life, at least enough to wrap me in the rug, carry me outside, throw me in the ground, go back into the house, chase the girls, carry out the golden retriever, my mom and dad's, and then call 911.
How old
So
was your
that's what
brother
Jim did.
again?
Pardon?
How old was your brother again?
17.
Yeah, not your typical 17-year-old, huh?
And yet totally a typical 17-year-old before that day, which is what we're such an ordinary, broken, unimpressive family, which is why this story is all the more impressive. Like, we're not, holy cow, we expect that from the Kennedys. We weren't. We were barely middle class, barely kind of getting by, just doing the thing, church on Sundays and fried chicken Sunday nights, like just kind of life, man. And then 17-year-old brother Jim shows up. For his actions that day, he received the Lifesaver of the Year for the state of Missouri. Pretty cool.
Cool.
So that was cool, man. And yet you asked the story about the little girl. She was 7. Her name's Susan. I'm in the front yard. I'm naked. It's January in St. Louis. It's not Northwest Indy, but it's chilly, and there's snow on the ground. I have no clothes on because they've been burnt off, but I also have no skin. That's the situation in the front yard, and this little 7-year-old hears me that I want to die. I'm telling my older sister that I want out. I want her to go back into the house and get a knife. And what this 7-year-old does is she goes back into the house, but not for a knife. She goes in for a cup of water. She comes racing back outside. She throws the cup of water right into my face. She then wheels around and goes back into a burning house a second time, fills up a second cup, comes back, throws it in my face, and then she runs right back in. The Gospel of John, there's a quote, "No greater love is there than this, to be willing to lay down one's life for one's friends." And that is great love, and she's willing to do it. She doesn't have to, apparently. So she's able to safely go into a burning house 3 times. It's one more little miracle. Come outside safely. 3 cups of water throwing right into my face. We think, so much of it's remarkable, but as you and I are having this conversation, I'm burned 3rd degree from my neck to my toes. But as you look at my goofy face, you may not love it, but I do. My whole body's scarred and busted, but not my face. And the doctors credit her with that, which is nice, not only for facial recognition, that's, I guess, fine, but they also credit her for saving my scalp. All my hair that you see above my forehead is my hair, which is fine to have as I approach 50, but more than that, my whole body needed skin after I started recovery. And they drew layer after layer, donor site after donor site, from the only place they could harvest, which was my scalp, which was what the cool water rushing over my face allowed the doctors to draw from in the 5.5-month recovery to follow. So without my brother, I would have died in the front hall. Without my sister, I would not have been able to make the recovery anyway. So These are just two examples so far. Now, you mentioned three, but those are just two examples so far.
Right. I have so many questions. My first thought was, did the snow help at all? Laying in the snow.
So I never in the movie they showed me kind of laying down.
Mm.
In reality, I stood the whole time. I
Oh, you
remember
did.
feeling almost like I remember feeling like a monkey. It's hard to say because already I was starting to contract in. And so I remember like, I used to be athletic. A 9-year-old can only be so athletic, but I was like just out there all the time. And in the front yard, as things were progressing, as we were waiting for the ambulance, I just kept feeling like drawn in. I could barely move my arms, barely move my legs, and hobbled around. We never lay down, never sat down. My sister Amy, who you haven't asked about, but Amy's 11, and she's the one who held me in the front yard and just kept saying, John, it's going to be okay. Have faith and fight. John, it's going to be okay. Have faith and fight. John, it's going to be okay. Have faith and fight. So we never laid. So I don't know if the snow helped.
Okay. Yeah. And her story, because she was getting burned by holding you. I can't, like, the whole thing is like, I tried to imagine it, but it was almost like beyond the capacity of my imagination of what this looked like. Just incredible.
It's cool that you bring it up. I've wrestled with my whole life, and I look in the mirror and I see the reminder. I have scars everywhere. Additionally, I've been speaking about this for 20 years. So this story rarely catches me off guard anymore. But as the movie rolled out, I was surprised at how caught off guard my siblings were.
Mm.
And I think what happened is that they just hadn't really thought of it. Why spend too much time living there? Had not. And then when the film was shot in my mom and dad's house. So when you see the front hall, that's not just, well, that's a lovely Hollywood studio. Like that's where I'm going to come to pick up my mom tonight. Like I'm going to pick her up for a little dinner we're having as a family. Like that's her front hall. So when they saw the girls on the steps coming down to see their brother, my sisters were not only looking at a scene of a little boy burning, not only a scene of two little girls screaming, but they were looking at it in their mom and dad's house just as I was. And I think that really opened up some old wounds in a good way, kind of. But it was hard for them because that day was so much. It's so much more than we can really talk about. And it's so much more than Hollywood could show when they want to allow a child like yours to be able to watch it without having nightmares. Because what they saw, and the hardest day for me on shooting was for sure the day of the fire, like to watch that. And the hard part is when they do a take, it ends and they say, okay, from the top. And they roll the cameras back and all the actors go back to their spot and action. And then you do it again and again and again and again. And it was hard, but also heroic. And then we took lunch and then we'd come back and then they shoot the homecoming. So, and the way Hollywood works is they try to capture scenes where they take place as quickly as possible to save on budget. And I find it so wild that the worst day of my life was shot in the morning, and maybe the best day of my life was shot in the afternoon, coming home. So, it's not really human terms, but I think God's economy works differently, and it's not a straight line, but that's how we painted it while we filmed this movie, and I'm glad we were able to share that with people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could see how that could be a thing, because it's like for you and your siblings and your mom, it's like holding a mirror up to what happened. Like it's different to remember it than to watch it. Yeah. Incredible. The other question I had was, I think anybody could have compassion on the feeling of go get a knife and I just want it to end. Was mental health something that you struggled with through, or was it, I'm so glad to be alive? I have a hard time believing it was just like positivity from there.
I think mental health is something all of us struggle with if we're honest about it to different degrees. And that doesn't mean all of us have suicide ideation all the time, or all of us are proclaiming, get the knife, I'm ready to get out of here. but who has not had a day where we wonder, why are we even here? Does my life matter at all? If I checked out on my spouse and kids, would they even know? If I accidentally turned left here into that train, not away from it into the ditch, but into it, would they be better? I mean, I think most of us have had fleeting whispers of that, and many of us have had chronic roars. So for me, the day of, it was acute, meaning like it hadn't been simmer. I never considered that as a 9-year-old, but that day I did. And then I did not for the majority of my time in hospital or shortly after, but from time to time, seasonally, not based upon weather, but based upon circumstances. A teenager, when they are home and all their friends are at a dance, has to wonder, what's the point of this? When everyone else is dating in college and you're not, will this ever turn? When you go in for job interviews and you realize you're unqualified for a million reasons and you don't get any job in your young life, you have to, like, what am I doing here? Like, I did not wrestle with it from an acute sense after the day I was burned, but I did hear whispers of what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? And I have family members who wrestled with it more specifically than that. It's their story, it's not mine, so I can't go into details. But what I would say is, for those who hear the whisper sometime, that's okay. It's normal. I think we celebrate and worship a God who's big enough to wrestle and love us with and through this. And for those of us who are in a place of profound darkness and we feel completely isolated, maybe your takeaway from this podcast is not go see the film Soul on Fire, buy the book On Fire. It might be call a friend and tell them what's going on and let them know you need help. That's not weakness, it's strength. And I've been blessed to be on the receiving end of several of those phone calls, and I'm humbled by those calls. I'm humbled by those calls. I'm grateful for them, and I promise you, your friend would be too. There's a lot of people out there who are for you, even if right now you don't feel like you're for yourself.
Yes. So true. And I feel like that's a topic that is so top of mind lately. Like mental health is a real thing. And I feel like it's happening younger and younger and younger. And so for the parents who are listening, like, talk to your kids about this stuff, because it is scary.
It is scary. And part of why we are seeing it younger and younger and younger is because when you and I were kids, we kind of like went outside.
Okay.
And then we'd hear like a bell and it's like, gosh, freaking dinner time. I got to go, guys. And now our kids come in and either they go up to their room and they just get on their phone. And for them, their phone means access to the entire world. Mm-hmm. But not a real world. And not a world where they have any agency to make it better. A world where bombs are being dropped and tankers are burning in the Persian Gulf. And like life is completely out of warp, and AI is showing up and their job's going to be replaced. And why am I even here? And then they go to the social media sites and they see their friends who've got way more friends than they do. And if you're a lady listening in, your girlfriends are far more attractive than you are. It's not even close. The fact that those are filters doesn't mean anything to you because you're looking at the photo, not the reality. And they take better vacations than you. And all these, it's all bull. This is the world that our young people are growing up in. And so part of the thing we can do is to take away that phone. That doesn't mean remove it entirely, but there can be borders and boundaries you set up. There can be timelines that you assemble into it. You can do things that are wild, like, Jimmy, go outside and play. No, leave the phone. Knock on the neighbor's door. We used to have things called unorganized athletics, meaning you would play baseball with like an 8th grader, a 6th grader, some freaking 1st grader who stinks, but he's out. Like, it was the neighborhood. And now we drop them off at 4:15. We pick them up at 5:30. We swing by Applebee's because the food is already ready because we knew we had to get it in before the 6 o'clock ballerina. And then 7:30 piano recital. 8:15 we do Spanish. 10 o'clock they go to bed exhausted. They're so laid out, man. There's very little flexibility. And children used to have nothing but flexibility and freedom of play and freedom of thought. So for the moms and dads listening, if I haven't bored you to sleep yet, become a little bit less programmed.
Yes.
Let your kids have a little bit more freedom. Disconnect them from not only the rigidity and the scheduled of the day, but also free them from the internet and the
Hmm.
social side of it all. Let them go outside and look at the clouds and say, gosh, what do you see in that one? Oh man, I don't see it, but you know what? I see a snake coming out of it. I think that's a butterfly. Go outside and be a kid again, and you don't need to be 7. I know you're a Christian believer. Jesus said, let the children come to me. He wasn't saying under the age of 11, let those people approach. Over the age of 12, no, you are now a man and I have 0 inch. No, it wasn't age-based parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles. It was heart-oriented. Christ wants, the author of life wants people who are free from being overly programmed by life to be open to the fullness of life. Let the children come. So that is an invitation for all of us.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more. I actually just had my pastor's wife say to me recently, never book your schedule 100%. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, no more than 80%, because at 80%, you still have time for that spontaneous cup of coffee or that phone call. I mean, if you're booked 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you don't have time for anything. So my daughters, so I have a 12-year-old son, but I have daughters that are freshmen and sophomores in high school. And we're in the middle of a digital fast right now, which I can only do so much. I have a podcast, I am on social media. But it's been really interesting conversations and seeing them think it through, putting their phones down and going and playing pickleball. And one thing I think is cool is I'm seeing restaurants locally. I don't know if you have this by you, where they have like a square or like a tray in the middle of the table.
Wow.
And it says something like stack your phones here or something like that. And so it's like an encouragement that when you go to the restaurant and you sit at the table, like there's a place you can put your phone. And it's kind of fun because when you put all your phones, you end up creating like this pyramid. And
Yes.
yeah,
I'm amazed at how many, I don't mean like 12-year-olds like your son, like 2-year-olds
hmm,
are, you go to the Applebee's with the balloons, man, and you, because they drive you crazy. And I had 4 2-year-olds. Like I understand the misery of children. I did it 4 times. Thank God, because eventually they're going to be 3 and then 6 and then 10 and then gone. So it is so non-age appropriate to give a young person like that a phone to stare at. They ought to be looking at other little faces in the restaurant and trying to contribute and trying to get the crackers from your hand. Like the chaos is part of it. And then you see a lot of young people, I mean like younger 20-year-olds who are so familiar with technology, they don't know how to be with someone else. And so they're staring down at their phone, which is odd, instead of dating the person in front of them. And then I see most common these days, older folks, like 70, 75. And you just see them on their Fox app or CNN app, and you're like, gosh, you guys, like, they're going to tell you the world is on fire. But that doesn't mean your world has to burn. It doesn't have to burn. You can look at your loved one or the fellow widower, and you can connect on the things that you still have control over in your life, including, wow, look, like right now in St. Louis where I'm taking this call, there's this big old magnolia tree right out this window. It's freaking awesome. I can't wait for this podcast to wrap so I can go outside and just spend a few minutes underneath it. And if you're only looking down or only looking up at what our friends at Fox or CNN are telling us, you will be pretty sure that that tree isn't blooming, the world is burning, and the worst is yet to come. And if you can put the signal down and love the one in front of you, it doesn't mean there's not struggles. It just means when they appear in front of you, you can do something about them. I don't know why we feel we need to be expert at everything taking place everywhere in the world that you have no control over. None of it. And one thing I'll say, and then I'll get off the high horse.
no, you're good.
Be aware that these political organizations, and that these social media labs and that these major media outlets are not ultimately motivated to tell you truth. They're motivated to get your attention. They're motivated only, not some, only to get dollars from you. That is all they want. They don't want your heart. They don't want goodwill. They don't want your children's future. They want your dollars. And the way they get that is through your attention. And the way they've learned to get your attention is show them things that burn. Show them things that incite. Show them how bad the other side is. So my friends, if you want to recognize that it's better than they say, take the Christian challenge, do a digital detox, and watch what happens in your world. Honestly, you guys, like, it will change everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's funny. So we started, I think we're on 2.5 weeks of this, and go to church on Sunday, and the pastor's talking about, the fast or whatever. And he's like, for all I know, we could have been bombing Iran. And then someone in the audience was like, actually, we did. And it was just a reminder that oftentimes we don't know that we're supposed to be worried about things until this device tells us that we need to be worried about it. And I use this, and then we'll wrap this part of it up, but I use this with my daughter. We went snowboarding for Christmas, and she wanted a coordinating outfit, like the jacket matches the pants, that matches the helmet. And I was like, you only know that you want that because you saw it on TikTok. Otherwise, you would have never been like, when I go skiing, I have to match, because your dad and I definitely don't match.
No, neither does Uncle John. He's got a jacket he got in college, and it looks like it.
Right, right. And so we don't know what we don't know unless something's telling us, and that doesn't always bring you joy. So, okay, number 2 person, which I feel like we could talk a long, long, long time about. Actually, I'll say number 2 and number 3 of my favorite characters, and they're not characters, people, in your book was Jack, obviously. And then I can't remember his name. You were face down because you were getting skin grafts,
Yes.
and it was a hockey player.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell those 2 stories? I mean, how could you tell them in a few minutes, but share a little bit about that.
So I'll tell the hockey story first, and I'll do it succinctly. So all emotion will be scrubbed out of this storyboard, but here we go. I had been in the hospital for about 3 months at this point, and it had just gone through a procedure where I had to spend 3 weeks on my stomach. So
No,
9.
stop right there. That's excruciating.
Yeah, it's just hard. I mean, all this whole thing, life is hard. Okay, now what? So but it is hard. I'm really struggling. And this hockey player comes in. His name was Gino Cavallini. He lives up by you actually now. He's just outside of Chicago.
Really?
And he kneels down, he looks up and he says, how you doing, superstar? So I said, as a 9-year-old, awesome. But I was not. And he goes, tell you what, superstar, in tonight's game, I'm going to score a goal for you. And this guy was not a goal scorer. He hates when I tell this part of the story, but he's not. He's a tough guy. So I said, Gino, do us both a favor. Get in a fight instead. And that's something you can handle. And this 26-year-old Canadian kid goes, all right, superstar, if I can't score a goal, I'll get in a fight. So that night, long story short, in the first period, Gino Cavallini gets in a fight for me. And I'm listening on the radio with my mom and dad, and we're like, oh my gosh, like wait until my friends up at school hear about this. Like an NHL hockey player got in a fight for me. And the story ends there. I think it's like, well, what a sweet story. He did it. But it doesn't. In the third period, a man who never scores goals, it's a true story, you can look it up. Gino Cavallini against the Detroit Red Wings, our heated rival back then, does what he committed to. He scores what turns out to be the game winner. The Blues win. Gino scores. He starts to cry. The 4 teammates that he had on the ice were crying with him. It turns out that when Gino came into the locker room that day, he had told the guys that he made a promise to a dying child. And he wasn't sure how he was going to live into and fulfill it. He's like, guys, I'm going to need your help tonight, And so that night, a whole team had skated and passed and fought as one for a single purpose. And eventually they achieved that purpose. They not only won the game, but they won a greater victory, in my opinion. And that night they went out and celebrated as a team, but not at a bar. They went to a hospital to visit their new friend. 25 kids, these are 20-year-old kids. They didn't bring beer. They brought soda. They brought pizza. And the last one out at the end of the night was Gino. It's 2:30, and Gino kneels down and looks up and says, "How you doing now, superstar?" And I look back and same answer. Awesome.
But
But
it was
in this
real.
time, like I really meant it. Like it had changed. It changed my entire day, which changed a lot more than that.
Mm.
So Gino became a dear friend, not only in hospital but subsequently, and is still a friend in my life. And when On Fire came out back in almost 10 years ago, um, in fact, almost 10 years ago to today, I think today's, yes, we record this, it came out 10 years ago
Really?
today. Yeah.
Wow.
Uh, he was at the launch party. So I brought him in and brought out the stick he scored the goal with. It had been signed by the 25 teammates that were on the team with him. So a pretty remarkable thing, and a pretty remarkable guy whose life was bent not towards sports and success, but towards service and excellence, which led to success and fulfillment and goals and fights and money. But that wasn't the objective. That wasn't the objective. The goal was to be of service, and he sure was to me. So that's it. That's succinctly Gino's story. The Jack Book story is so much. I don't even know how you unpack it other than to say, go watch the film Soul on Fire. Like, that's my shameless plug. It's free, I think, on every social app now. So wherever you stream movies, Amazon, Apple, Fandango, Netflix, check out Soul on Fire. Like, it is, it's a true story. It was filmed on location where the thing happened. And about 18 minutes in, you'll see a man named Jack Buck who is at a charity auction. He's a Hall of Fame radio announcer for the St. Louis Cardinals. And it's a true story. The night John O'Leary gets burned, he overhears that a little boy in town was burned today and is going to die. And if you had overheard that conversation, what would you have done?
Probably would have been sad.
Right? Or like, man, I'll post about it. Hashtag thoughts and prayers, little boy John, or whatever we do
Right.
these days. That man leaves the party. In the movie, they showed it. True story. He shows up that night wearing a tuxedo and walks into a little boy's room, utters these words that woke me up. Kid, wake up. You are going to live. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark will make it all worthwhile. Keep fighting. See you soon. And he lived into that promise in mighty ways. There's the teaser. It's a true story. It's a remarkable story. When Jack leaves, one little tidbit, this is an Easter egg. He leaves that day. He's told by the staff the little boy is going to die. And when you watch the movie, the nurse telling him this is actually Jack Buck's real granddaughter. She's an actor based out of New York right now. Her name's Natalie Buck. So Natalie Buck was the nurse in the movie who tells Jack Buck that the little boy is going to die. And so when you bump into the film, there's a whole lot of little things that we kind of tied in there, but that's a pretty cool moment when a granddaughter looks up at the man who is really her grandfather.
Incredible. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I have so many more questions. I know that we are out of time, but the last thing I wanted to say was I had the opportunity to listen to a presentation on Thursday. And the presentation was entitled The Blessings of Having Been Broken. And how unless the only way growth can really come, you don't have growth by winning a medal. You don't have growth by, getting a promotion. Really, growth can only come from being broken. So what would you say to someone who's listening and is feeling like they're in a season of being broken and they're just like, I don't get how this could ever bless me? What would you say to someone like that?
First, I'd say me too. And then I would say nothing. Yeah, I'm paid, I guess, to be a motivational speaker, but I think talk is so cheap when you're struggling. I don't think you can talk someone out of feelings. So if I was their actual friend, I would just sit there and hang with them. I'm a hospital chaplain by training. I never once went in to evangelize or to fix. My job was to go in there and love on people and just meet them where they were in their circumstances and be there with them. I think the power is in the proximity, in the presence. So I would be with this person, whoever these people are. I would remind them not only of stories of great people in history, wherever you want to turn, the best among us always shines through the struggle. To give light requires being burned. I mean, it's a weird idea, even a light bulb. Like ultimately, the reason they burn out is the entire time they're lit, it's burning. Logs that give light, it's being burned. And so the idea of it going through hardship is in fact preparing you to offer up more light. But it hurts. I would remind people scripturally that any great saint endured the burn and the curiosity of like, where are you? I was reading today in Genesis about Abram. Abram was told, like at 40, your descendants will be more numerous than the stars in the sky. Like, what a cool thing to hear from God. So now we're thinking like, okay, well, cool. I bet he loved holding that baby in 9 months later. No, I forgot on this part of the story. At like age 81, I won't even make it to 81. Abram then makes the decision because his wife has told him to sleep with her, this other lady, and they have a baby. This is not God's will, but that's what they do because we make mistakes all the time. So Abram only waited 4 decades and God never showed up seemingly. And then when he's 99, guys, I won't make it, but Abram did. God shows back up in a mighty way and says, gosh, you've made some missteps along the way, but I've been with you. I'm with you still. And your descendants will multiply like the stars in the sky. Our God is faithful, even when we don't know it, even when it seems like, well, John, I've waited 3 years for Miss Wright to show up in my life and she hasn't arrived. I've been waiting 6 months for a new job opportunity. I've been fighting for this new thing, John, at school, and it's not working out for me. My mom is still a pain in my life. I'm 12, and like, I get it all, and so does God. But not on your time, but on his. And what I would say from a man who's struggled so much in my life and struggles still today, my life is not fixed, it's a journey, is I am at peace knowing that the God of Scripture and the author of life is still for me, and he's still for you, even in the midst of struggle and concern and anxiety and loneliness. That God is there for us. So that brings me profound peace. I would remind those people as I get ready to hug them goodbye, and we need a vision. I think it's very easy when we struggle to flick back on cable news and be reminded, you know what, maybe I'm right in recognizing how miserable this world is and my world is. I think we need a vision bigger than the struggles of today. So that's important. I think we need people to move toward that with. And the final thing I would say to them is, and I think you need to stop listening to the voices. At some point, you need to begin speaking truth into that person's life. And I'm talking to you in the mirror. We have become a society that is highly attuned to feelings. And well, how do you feel? You know, your great grandmother never asked herself, how does she feel about her her spouse? It's like, well, shit, I made the decision to marry that old hag, and I've been enduring that misery ever. Like, we went millennia aware of the feelings, but not attached to them. And we become attached to how we feel, and that is going to take us on a roller coaster, usually a fiction. Doesn't mean your feelings can't have some fact to them, but it also doesn't mean that every feeling you have is true. So instead of listening to the voices telling you how miserable the world is, begin speaking truth into it. Treat yourself like the best friend that you have or the one you wish you had would speak to you. Speak wisdom over your life. Remind yourself that you're here for a purpose. Remind yourself that the author of life does not make accidents and did not with you. And remind yourself that what's true for Abram is true for you. That your best days, in spite of the struggles of today, remain ahead of you. And I think if you can begin doing some of these things to some degree, we will not only endure the season of struggle, but we'll move into a season we can't even fathom right now because it's going to become so good.
Yes, I love that. All right, John O'Leary, thanks for coming on. We'll see you guys
KB,
next week.
it's been an honor to be on your show, and I appreciate you reaching back out after we met a couple weeks ago.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys. Bye.